Well, welcome to the first status chat of 2026. We're going to look at Tennessee's economic outlook from UT Boyd Center. Their take, now this should be a statewide thing. We'll just hit that just a little bit. I'll give you the link because that's a long one to look at. And we'll also look at Redfin. We'll just skim through it just the same darn way. Before we get started, remind you that there is the QR code to the YouTube site where you can find these status chats, should you want to do so. And of course, here we have today's topic. Again, because you've been busy and the new year's just started and you're probably a little bit overblown, I'm not going to give you a lot of this, kind of hit the bullet points of Redfin's thing, maybe hit Boyd Center too, because again, they're two predictors, but they're coming from different directions. So let's start with Redfin. Now they start this out. This is at the start of December. We're going to look at Boyd's, came out about midway. Redfin's 2026 prediction. Here's the clickbait that they get you to read. Welcome to the Great Housing Reset. And it's a big bunch of clickbait. It doesn't do that at all. Chen Zhao and Daryl Fairweather published the 2nd of December. And it says U.S. homebuyers will start to get some relief in 2026 with affordability improving as income growth outpaces home price growth. Next year will be the beginning of a long, slow recovery in the housing market. Now catch this next paragraph. The Great Housing Reset will take shape in 2026. It will not be a quick price correction and it won't be a recession. So it's not going to be feast or famine. Instead, the Great Housing Reset will be a years-long period of gradual increases in the home sales and normalization of prices as affordability gradually improves. It will start next year with incomes rising faster than home prices for a prolonged period for the first time since the Great Recession. Well, that just a lot of hype just to say it's going to moderate. But, you know, this is how these retail set type people go. They want you to act now. Sometimes they'll put a counter like on where is it, Amazon. They'll hit you with you need to buy right now. This price is only good for the next 2 hours. And then next 2 hours, the same company gives another clock and it just resets. This is a lot of hype to get you excited. This is to get you to read it. Now it says prediction number 1. Mortgage rates will dip to a low 6% range, one factor improving affordability. I saw someone else predicting high 5s, but these, wish in one hand, these are just guesses, best guesses. And if they're right, they'll say, see, weren't we right? Weren't we brilliant? And if they're wrong, they won't ever mention it again. And it just says that it's going to come down very, very slowly, a lot slower than it went up. I would agree that it's not going to move a lot in mortgage rates. All right. Prediction number 2, home buying affordability will improve as wages grow faster than prices. Right? Don't know where they're sourcing this from. But anyway, it's just going to be what it is. Wages grow faster than home prices in 2026. This says NAR and Atlanta Fed Wage Tracker. So you can tell I'm out of sync talking to people. Been doing a lot of typing, not so much talking. So Atlanta Fed, we could probably go look at that at the Federal Wage Tracker next week. Prediction number 3, home sales will rise 3%. All right. It's not really getting all that exciting, but we're going up 2025, 2026. It looks pretty normal. All right. We expect a stronger spring home buying season in 2026 because mortgage rates were sitting around 6.8 during 2025, meaningfully higher than the 6.3 rates we are predicting this year. We could always check, see what they're going to be this week. Prediction 4, rents will rise as demand for apartments rises and supply falls. Well, I had a Thomas Sowell quote queued up about scarcity in government and what all, but I think I'll leave that out and go to a different one as it is. But yeah, anytime, if we can't get into buying houses, we usually go into renting homes or apartments or whatever. Now, this specifically talks about apartments versus rental homes, which may be something that they're not talking about. Demand for apartments will rise as supply falls in 2026, leading to a rising rents in many metro areas like Nashville probably. Nationwide, we expect rents to rise about 2% to 3% over year by the end of 2026, roughly the pace of inflation. Well, I would kind of agree with that, but you know, our wage is really going to outpace inflation. Prediction number 5, high housing costs will reshape households with more roommates and fewer babies. Well, let me just tell you, when I was a young lad and just, you know, trying to flee the nest, didn't have any money. Nobody had any money back in those days. We were working for minimum wage or just above until we were doing construction work, something like that. And everybody had to have a roommate. Here lately, I don't do the TikTok stuff, but I'm getting a lot of these TikTok girls complaining that they can't afford their 2-bedroom apartment. They're just a single lady with a 2-bedroom apartment. Do they need 2 bedrooms? Is one of them a production studio for their Fool's account or whatever? I don't know. Do they need one? You know, in my day, that was just expected. If you weren't like 30 years old, 40 years old with a real career, you had to have a roommate. I don't know if that's going to be a big deal. Now, this is talking about homes and a little bit about apartments, but still, it gives you the idea. Prediction number 6, affordability crisis will unite policymakers across party lines. I doubt that. Prediction 7, more Americans will refi and remodel. When I see refi and remodel, to me personally, I think that's a sign that people are cooling from the buying market and selling market, and they're just going to stay put a little longer. Maybe put some more sweat equity in it, do a little remodel themselves. Maybe they hire a contractor, whatever the deal is. It, to me, when we see refis going up for remodel, HELOCs are often used, I think, for credit card debt. I feel like they are, but maybe they're not. So I'm looking at things cooling down, people getting their head right, see what's going on. All right. Up to number 8. New York City outskirts Great Lake region will be hot. Zoom towns like Nashville and Austin will not. This is from Redfin, remind you. And look where it has housing markets most likely to cool down in 2026. And I can't tell you how much I agree with this. I think Nashville was really outrageously spiking there for a while post-COVID. And I think they're having a hard time regulating, but I think they probably will. I'm seeing something from fellow realtors out of Davidson County. Nashville is cooling a little bit. I would agree with that. So if you boomed early, you're going to cool a little early too. San Antonio, Austin, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Miami, all of these were hot ticket places to go. Of course, they spiked, so they're going to cool down a little bit. They're just kind of regulate. I think that's all 2026 is regulating the market. Prediction number 9, climate migration will go hyperbolic. Don't think so. I think the whole climate hoax thing is just about played itself. I mean, it goes back to when I was a kid. We've been predicting the end of the world. Hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going to. I think prediction number 9 is just total hogwash. Prediction number 10, NAR will let local MLSs call the shots. We're already doing that, so that's not really much of a prediction. Prediction 11, AI will become a real estate matchmaker. Yeah, I don't think so on that either. We use AI in Real Scout, some things to help you filter through your results, but I don't think it's going to do the legwork of what people do by any means. Now, The other half of the show was going to be the Boyd Center. Now, the Boyd Center is from, see the big orange T up here, or the white T on the orange background? UT Knoxville, Boyd Center's 2026 Economic Outlook for Tennessee. This is not just housing, but Tennessee shows positive but slow growth. And I think that's just what everybody's expecting. We're down with the crazy debt leveraged everything, buying of everything. We're gonna see realistic economics. All right, so we're going to skip through the introduction. We're going to come down here. This little paragraph: consumer sentiment across the U.S. is near an all-time low, and job growth in Tennessee, though still positive, has cooled. Moderation, that's all we got, moderation. The state typically averages about 60,000 new jobs per year, but is expected to have only 24,000 in 2025, representing a 0.7% increase. Projected job growth for 2026 is 31,400, a 0.9%, almost 1% in both of these cases, right? Increase. This outlook outpaces the national outlook of half of that. So I want to point the good news out from UT Boyd Center. Boyd Center Economic, and they advised the governor, if I'm not mistaken, we're outpacing the nation. So when you see stuff like Redfin, which gives you a national outlook, realize that that's why I take you to the Tennessee Boyd Center, because we're expected to do much better, and we expect to. Now, California is a hand grenade, a handbasket right now. I saw that they lost nearly 2%. I didn't give you the quote here. Nearly 2% of their companies that are home-based in California left last year. And a big one was an oil company, Chevron. Was it Chevron? Yeah, I think it was. They went to Texas. And, of course, they wouldn't come to Tennessee. We're landlocked. We don't have places for the boats to come and leave and that sort of thing. And plus, Texas, is world famous for its West Texas crude and West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude. So Texas, the oil producer, that makes sense. But yeah, people are moving out, and we have historically benefited from people leaving California and some of the blue states. So I think that'll still look good for us. We're balanced budget amendment. We're doing good in Tennessee, I think. Across here, there's some numbers up here. I'll let you read them. Across Tennessee, there were 54 counties with unemployment rates below 4%, including 3 with unemployment rates below 3%. Williamson, not a surprise. Cheatham and Sevier, those are a little bit of a surprise. I don't really know what's going on there up in their area. Tennessee population trends. Right. Tennessee added nearly 80,000 new residents between 23 and 24. That's 1.1% increase in population, is slightly higher than U.S. growth of 1% during the same period, and the 13th strongest among all U.S. states. It marks the third year in a row that the state population has increased by more than 1%, which hadn't previously happened since 2008, the big great financial crisis. So again, I think the Boyd Center is giving us some good news. I think we're going to be slow, but I think we're going to be above pace for most of the nation. And I don't think having a balanced budget amendment in our favor is hurting us at all, because it's hard to, if you turn somebody loose with a credit card, even in our great beloved state of Tennessee, I bet we would go into debt quick if we didn't have that amendment. It's just a thought. Maybe I'm wrong. Nuclear energy in Tennessee. The report's third chapter focuses on Tennessee's role in nuclear energy industry government initiatives to advance the industry and the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. Okay, because we've got to do something about our grid. I'm not going to read all this because we're already got a good run time here, and I think we're just going to go ahead and cut that back at this point in time. But anyway, I wanted you to start out with a realistic note, but I think it's pretty good shape. I think we're in pretty good shape. I'm hearing some of my counterparts from a different mindset. Every time they come on, they're glooming and dooming. Oh, Trump's tearing the world up. Oh, but the tariffs are killing us on inflation, but they're not. And we're going to get us a tax cut next year, a little bit of a rebate from those tariffs, if I'm not mistaken, and that should help us spin the economy. And if not, maybe it'll pay off some of those credit card debts where we are, if we are some of those people that are getting a little overwhelmed with it. Yeah, so I think we only have good stuff to come. Now, if you want to worry, go ahead, but to me, worrying is just borrowed misery. Like if you don't have enough of your own, you got to borrow it by worrying. Yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape. Could go south. Back during the Biden years, I was always telling you, hey, we could have a recession. We're overdue for a recession, but we didn't have one, or we did and we didn't notice it because they redefined how the words were. But before we go on to our numbers, speaking of lots of words, let's remind you that we want you to subscribe to our little show here and hit the notification bell so that you get the notification, because I try to hit Thursday, but sometimes Thursday doesn't happen and we go to Friday, because we used to do Friday, and if we didn't hit Friday, then we were just off for the weekend and people were doing their home stuff. So yeah, I moved it to Thursday. And if Thursday didn't work out, I still catch it on a Friday. All right, so we've got that. Let's look at our numbers for this week. First week in January of 2026, we see a decrease in both the under contracts and the availables, and yet the ratio between them did not change. So we had 25,870 in the availables, 3,234 in the under contract still showing. I don't have the room to say still showing, but I always read that out to you. Under contract still showing, because these represent, in my mind, a little bit of an uncertainty, if you will, so that they're still holding on in case something falls through financing or whatever. So that's why I do the under contracts still showing rather than just the under contracts. 13% was the ratio between the two of those. And although the bulk has slowed down, as we would expect, as we're going into the winter months, the gray months, just like we expect April to start being the hot month. All right, there we've got that going on. So let's get our words of wisdom. And this week I've picked you something from Thomas Sowell.